All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Beyond the Physics podcast. This is your host, Joseph Guzman. So, this is intended to be the second episode of the podcast. So, please bear with me as I try to sort through all the kinks. But the same request goes from the first episode. If you have any apparent criticisms or critiques, please send those my way. Just jumping into today's episode then, my co-host Irene Roman and I interview our good friend Juan. Juan is also a graduate student in physics who is currently doing research in condensed matter experiment. So to unpack what that means, let me just briefly describe each of our research fields. As you may know, I am studying astrophysics, which I'm sure most of you are at least vaguely familiar with. But in particular, I am currently studying open clusters, which are loose groupings of stars. And Irene is studying high energy physics, which has to do with the study of the fundamental building blocks of nature, such as subatomic particles. And Juan studying condensed matter experiment has to deal with the study of complicated phenomena in solids and liquids in particular. And in today's conversation, we start by exploring Juan's experience growing up in Section 8 housing in Texas. So I was very curious to see how Juan felt this influenced him in becoming the scientist that he is today. Next, we talk about a rather interesting topic, which was on unlikely occurrences. And we discuss whether this phenomena that humans tend to perceive as chains of extremely improbable events, whether that indicates an interwovenness of the universe that has yet to be understood. This, I think, deserves some thought if you haven't yet, so I encourage you to check that out. Then we go on to talk about some popular media, specifically Avengers Endgame. So, if you haven't seen the movie yet, this is your official spoiler warning. We go on to talk about how Avengers Endgame misrepresents quantum mechanics, and movies and new spirituality is guilty of this in general. Because quantum mechanics is often presented as this deeply mysterious subject, and as such it is prone to treating it as a black box to describe whatever it is that we don't understand currently. So, we try to dispel at least some of those misconceptions. Finally, we talk about some cosmology, where I talk about the beginnings and ends of the universe, as well as the state of dark matter, as far as I am aware currently. Please keep in mind that although I study astrophysics, this isn't exactly my wheelhouse either. Anyways, we also briefly discuss how one can cultivate one's hobbies while in graduate school. Anyways, I think that should briefly summarize the conversation, so if any of that sounds interesting to you, please stick around. And with that, I bring to you our conversation with our good friend, Juan. This is Beyond the Physics. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Beyond the Physics podcast. This is Joseph Guzman, your host, and I'm joined by my co-host, or potential co-host at this point, Irene Roman.
Hi, everyone. I'm Irene Roman.
And we are joined today by our guest, Juan.
Beep. Last name beeped out. What's going on?
Yep.
Physics gang, Eigenbros, Eigencats. Yeah.
Right. So do you want to shamelessly plug what you got going on in your life? First to start.
So my buddy Terrence, we got a little thing going on. We got Eigenbros. And yeah, I mean, pretty much check it out if you want. Just irreverent kind of things. We don't really talk about physics a lot. It's just kind of like I just like the name.
Okay.
So we just picked that name. Yeah, it was kind of like a joke that I had in my undergrad, and I was like, oh, that's we both do physics, so it's kind of a funny inside joke. But I'm like, man, maybe I should let somebody else take the name, because I'm like, we're not living up to the physics part of it. Anyway, yeah.
So,
check that out if you have time.
So Eigenbros on YouTube. Correct?
YouTube, yeah. Actually, there's also a SoundCloud.
Right.
But the episodes aren't updated because SoundCloud is like greedy and doesn't let you upload more than like 2 or 3 episodes.
Right. I had a conversation with Terrence about this, about what I've been doing for my podcast stuff.
Yeah.
I guess I'll have to talk to you about it
afterwards.
afterwards, so we don't bore people with technical details.
Smart.
Right. But so, anyways, just to start, I guess I'd like to just frame your whole experience, right? So, if we could just work from like the ground up, like, what was your experience growing up? You were born in Texas, is that right?
Yeah. I was born in Texas.
Right, and so
born and raised, if you can't tell from my accent. Yeah, man, born and raised. I grew up in like South Texas, so that's like Austin, San Antonio, like that area. And yeah, I mean, like, I guess if you go from the beginning, you kind of have to start at like really big family. What is it? Is it technically first generation? Is that like the college
that you were
thing?
born here, or?
Yeah. First generation, like pretty much. And since I had a big family, we were really broke. Being first generation, I guess, is like, I guess it doesn't really mean necessarily if, first generation that you're broke, but yeah, big family, kind of grew up poor.
So like, how many siblings?
5, including me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then a lot of cousins.
Right.
And then, a lot of sleepovers.
And they all lived with you, or?
Yeah, on and off. It was like, yeah. There we go. I had to get lower because this is more comfortable. Yeah, a lot of cousins like coming over and stuff, but we kind of grew up in a very poor, I guess, section of the city. Like we had the government housing, so like I lived in Section 8 for like 10 years. It's pretty much like a lot. The first 10 years of my life were really shaped by that time. Like just living in poverty for like 10 years really kind of fucks with your head sometimes. But it was definitely like, it was definitely, I learned a lot. Like, I think without it, I don't think I'd be the same sort of neurotic sort of person I am. So,
right, yeah, of course.
Kind of grateful for it a little bit, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, so I guess one point of like, I'm like curious as to what the experience was growing up, specifically, I guess, in Texas.
Oh,
Texas. It kind of has like a reputation of being like a hub for like conservative thinking.
Yeah.
And perhaps, being a first generation person in, the US, perhaps you had some bad experiences with like, in terms of racial prejudice.
Nah, you
like
would
that.
think, but the cities in Texas are kind of like, in South Texas, there's a lot of Hispanic people.
Yeah, mostly.
If you haven't guessed from my name, it's definitely, I'm definitely Hispanic. So, yeah, a lot of the city's probably mostly Hispanic. So I didn't really feel a lot of that. It's very integrated, so it's kind of hard to get that. It's more classist. You definitely get a lot of, you probably get more racism from like, or colorism, I should say, from people within the Hispanic community, more than like the people outside.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And let me see. As far as conservativeness, the city that I grew up in, San Antonio, it's not very conservative. It's pretty liberal. Not as liberal as Austin, but yeah, San Antonio's weird, man. I will say it was really weird growing up there because we had What do I say? We kind of had a lot of California transplants. So a lot of my friends growing up were from California.
Okay.
Like as I got older, I was like, dang, okay, like the fuck, like what are all these Lakers fans doing in San Antonio? You know. So yeah, it was weird. But they definitely brought some of their culture with them, because I think like emo music wouldn't have been as big where I was growing up if it wasn't for those California kids. But yeah, I mean, it's in terms of politics too. I think I am more conservative than some people would think, but only on some issues. Like I wouldn't say like on some big things like you know, right now contentiously women's rights stuff. You know,
right.
I think most Texans in the cities like would lean on the Roe versus Wade sort of interpretation of that. But yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm wondering if I'm answering your question.
Right, yeah. No, you are. It's just
because there's so many ways I can go with this. Like,
yeah, of course,
you know,
whatever way strikes your fancy. But it's yeah.
I'm an ambassador of Texas, so bring it on.
Yeah, apparently. But
I've even gone to the breakfast food, man. We have like amazing tacos there.
Yeah,
they kill the California food. I'm gonna tell you right now. Nothing better.
That's a bold claim.
It is a bold claim, but it's true.
I remain skeptical. But
You remain skeptical.
I'm curious. I'm curious.
We'll see if they have like a conference and we go. You're gonna be like, yeah, man, you guys win. You know, this is it. There's a reason. Actually, there's a reason. Why? Do you know what's his name? Guy Fieri.
Right.
Do you remember what his like the slogan is? Like he talks about some Flavor Town, right?
Yeah. Take him to Flavor Town.
Yeah. So Flavor Town. Guess how much? Guess how many? Guess what city has been in Flavor Town the most? You guessed it, San Antonio.
Right.
So San Antonio is by that, you know, by his like just
by Guy Fieri's definition, it is the flavorsome ist.
It is Flavor Town. It's Flavor Town, bro. That's why we're the most obese city.
Oh, okay.
See, it's just everything adds. All the math adds up. So, so yeah. I mean, yeah. But
so the best part of Texas food is what? Tex-Mex or like what is?
Dude, there's so much. I mean, we do everything right, man. I don't even know what to tell you. We do brisket right. We do barbecue right. We do, except maybe seafood, but you know, it's nowhere even near like a coastal area. So, but everything else, everything on the turf, we got it, man. Between us and Austin, dude, you can't beat it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm gonna.
So yeah, I'm kind of a foodie. Like when I came here, I was like, dude, damn, there's nothing here.
Yeah. I mean, that's my.
I mean, you're from California too, so
right.
You know what fucking good food is like.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it was an event like pretty much, you know, every week we'd go out somewhere nice to eat.
Yeah, exactly.
And here it's just like you're starved. It's really. You miss it for sure. It's one of the first things you notice.
Yeah.
But, okay. What did your parents do while you're growing up?
For a living?
Yeah. It's professional.
There was no profession. It was just like my mom just tried to find whatever job she could.
So like job hopping, like she would.
I mean, she was like a waitress.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, she did what she could. I think she's a hustler for sure. She had like 2 jobs all the time. I don't think I've ever seen her without a job. So, yeah, props to her for sure. Yeah, she somehow did it with 5 kids, man. That's insane. Yeah, she's like waitress. Like at one time she was like a cafeteria cook lady, but most of the time she's just been working as like a waitress and helping out in restaurants, cleaning up houses. You know, typical like Hispanic lady kind of thing. You know. Mm-hmm. And shout out to all my Hispanic ladies out there, you know, doing it. I mean, especially if you're first generation, like not first generation, but especially if you come into this country, like, you know, you don't really have any qualifications.
Yeah.
Like that's a huge thing too. In most, like I'm about to get political, but you know, when people come over here with their doctorates, like it means nothing to like when you bring your certifications here, which kind of sucks for those people. I don't know if you're aware of that. I imagine. I think.
Well, I wouldn't say I am. I mean,
Oh,
very
shit,
educated
okay.
in that. Like, what do you mean? Like, I could see how, like, if you come from, like, say, a third world country and you have like a doctorate in something, how the perception might be. I can imagine what that would be like, but I would be surprised if you said like they just completely discredit it entirely.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think it's like because you need to be accredited by, what is it? What's the institution here? I forget what it's called. It's like a board of something. I don't know.
I mean, it may depend though on the institution you go to. I mean, I don't know where your mom is.
Yeah, she has no certifications.
My dad from Mexico, he went to one of the major universities there, and he got a bachelor's.
Yeah.
And then he came here, and they did honor the bachelor's.
Oh, okay, good.
And then he got into a master's program.
Yeah,
it's pretty good, but
props. Yeah,
so
I mean,
it probably depends on the university.
Oh, totally. Right? Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, but I've never. I guess for like universities, I haven't heard any qualms about that. But yeah, I think it makes sense that it would mostly depend on like the certification of the university itself. So yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Right, but
yeah,
acknowledging that perhaps the experiences you've heard of are like a lot of people come from these non-accredited universities or whatever.
Yeah.
Their experience just doesn't count.
Apparently, I don't know. I've heard this like on other like what is it called? A stupid radio show NPR. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's like that. No, I'm just kidding. I think I heard it on NPR a long time ago, but it was talking about how there was like an epidemic. People use that word of like, immigrants that come here with certain certifications and then they don't get honored, and then they have to take like a crappy job like a taxi driver or something. And they're like, in my country, I was a doctor or whatever, or I was an engineer, but coming here didn't mean anything or something. It's kind of, that kind of sucks. But yeah, I mean, that has nothing to do with my mom. Like she literally had no qualifications coming here. Okay. So, I mean, I don't have anything to fight against in this case.
Right.
But as far as my dad, he's got an interesting life story. He's from Mexico. He went to California and lived there, got his like bachelor's allegedly. I say this allegedly because I've never seen the certificate. He says he studied history. He also says that he studied communications, both certifications which I haven't seen. So
so what makes you question those certifications, I guess?
Because I've never seen them.
Okay. That's the only reason. It sounds like maybe.
Yeah, like, dude, I mean, it's because he says a lot of things. So I'm like, a
lot of things
that I have questions about.
Right. Okay.
So I'm like, yeah, okay, all right. Maybe I believe you. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay.
Dude, because he's like, yeah, I'll get into this later. But okay. So he went on to, because he had me at a later age, so I can't really confirm anything before this time. So he says that he also was a radio host, which I can kind of believe him because I went to the couple times that I've been down to where he was like a radio DJ. The town fucking loved him. Like, they were just like giving us free food and shit. And I was like, damn, he's really popular here. I mean, it's like he must have been a fucking radio DJ or something. So anyway, yeah, he's got like some local celebrity fame there. And I mean, he was. So yeah, my dad, I think, was the more professional one. And yeah, I mean, that's about it though. Like,
well, so then what did he do for a job?
Yeah, he was a radio DJ.
Oh, okay.
For a long time, like from like some state. I don't even remember the station name, but it must have been like one of those like one of those fucking Tejano fucking radio stations. I don't even know. But props to him. He also did. I think he used to like DJ techno music when techno music was huge. Yeah. Let's see what else. What else did he do? He's kind of like a handyman. He does a lot of shit, like fix cars and stuff. Yeah, like he wanted to be a scientist, and he was like, "Damn, I'm glad you became like a scientist because I hate math. So I was like, I hate math too.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I put up with it sometimes. So, yeah. But yeah, I mean, pretty much like that's pretty much what my parents do for the most part.
I mean, my dad's in a similar position. He's like an amateur astronomer, right?
Yeah,
he feels he doesn't have the type of mind that could do astrophysics or something like that. Like he wishes he could, right?
Yeah, my dad's the same. Like he's like, oh, I wish.
Right.
Does your dad come at you? But my dad's very. This is why I'm skeptical of my dad, because he's very conspiratorial.
Okay.
And he also believes like a lot of like how do you say it, like he thinks the ancients had like secret knowledge of certain things.
I see.
Like he thinks Tesla, what is that called? There's like a bias or something where it's like you think because it's like it's ancient, it's something. I mean, it is unknown, and there's some sort of mysticism to it, but he takes it to a whole nother level.
Yeah,
like,
I see.
Like he's like Tesla. He's like, yeah, Tesla unlocked gravity.
What does that even mean?
Yeah, I know, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm like, right. Okay, Dad, I try to talk him down, but yeah, he's just like, he is I got to give him credit. He's like got an amazing imagination, but that's what makes me skeptical about a lot of things. What he says, so I'm like, okay. I can't confirm this. Like, this guy says a lot of things. Like, yeah, my whole life has been me questioning my own father's like mental, like his stories are so amazing to me that I'm just like, dude, what is this real? Is this really your life experience, or is this like something, are you, what is that word?
Hyperbole.
Say what?
Like hyperbolized.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm like, this is just too incredible. Because he's like a natural storyteller. I can see why he ended up becoming a radio host kind of person. So I'm like, damn. Yeah, I mean, obviously I've reached this position as I've gotten older. Like, you know what I mean? I used to be much more gullible when I was a kid. So yeah. But
yeah, that's a really interesting background. Like, I mean, imagining the family backdrop seems unique.
Yeah, dude.
It's a lot of moving parts there.
Yeah. There's a lot of neuroticism that comes down. I legitimately have like diagnosed generalized anxiety because like, the fuck, dude, it was just like my whole childhood was a roller coaster, like up until I was able to move out and just be like, yeah, I'm gonna just like chill. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, it was wild,
right?
For sure.
So I mean, you kind of briefly touched on a point that kind of answers it, but I'm always curious to hear like how much help your parents, or what kind of resources you had growing up, like in the education system, like K through 12, like. It sounds like your parents weren't really a resource there to help you like push you towards this career in science or anything.
Nah.
So how did you manage that, I guess?
Oh shit, I don't even know, man. I'm gonna be honest with you. I had literally almost no help. I will say that the public institutions did kind of help. There was like, I don't know, but I guess maybe now that I think about it, maybe it was a little bit of also maybe a natural inclination because while I was living, I remember fondly of certain things. And one of those things was like where I was growing up in this particular area of like public housing was there was like a creek running through this place, and like I would always go down there and be like, dude, animals are so crazy. Like water, just how does light reflect off of water? Like I would ask myself these big questions. And like, why does life exist? And like, crazy shit. And I remember being like, man, I want to find all that stuff out. And yeah, I mean, it was just, I guess I kind of was born into it. I mean, I remember my dad telling me something kind of crazy. He was saying that before I was born, he was like, man, I was kind of hoping, you would like my son would be, a physicist or something. I was like, damn, that's wild. Like, or I mean, he said like a scientist or something, but yeah, I was like, dude, that's crazy. Like, he kind of wished that upon the universe. So, I mean, I guess he got kind of lucky. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, he really didn't have a lot of input. Like, as much as he wanted that to happen, he really had no control over all that because like after a while, my parents separated at some point, and then like he's sort of woven into the picture sometimes, but mostly like to touch base and be like, hey, I'm still thinking about you, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it was kind of like shit. He was like, dude, I got lucky, man. I got lucky you weren't a headache. Like, I was like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, but I mean, I think most of it was innate because I definitely get it from him. Like, and then I got lucky as I went along. I got help from, like I was saying, public institutions. Like, I had some good teachers that kind of helped me get to certain positions. And then, yeah, I had some guidance, some good guidance from some teachers along the way, for sure.
Yeah. So
I'm one of those that fell through the cracks, so to say.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think I have a pretty similar experience. Yeah. Like, my parents split up too, and my dad and stepmom knew shit about it.
They were just like, science. Oh, all right, cool, yeah. Right.
So it was just like pretty much as soon as I passed algebra, like, you're on your own, kid.
Damn, yeah.
So, it's like I always was kind of mediocre at math. I was always like really good at English. That just came naturally to me. But
so was I.
Yeah.
What did you speak Spanish when you were a kid? Like first?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm. Yeah.
You spoke English first.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if like my.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Have your parents? Because it's hard to think back to a point where I wasn't speaking English.
Well, it's just because my dad like.
He has recordings.
No, he never speaks Spanish.
Oh, he never spoke Spanish to you. Okay.
Spoke Spanish in the house. Like, I don't know if he even knows Spanish that well. I think he's like first generation.
Oh, okay.
Like his dad came from Mexico.
Oh, okay.
But
that makes sense.
I don't know if he ever bothered to learn it. Or,
okay. He probably knows it, but he's just like, nah, I don't speak it well enough.
Yeah, so I don't know. I only grew up learning English. So.
Yeah. That's good.
But so were you about to say? Like,
no, because I was like, I mean, because you were saying I was good at English.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that kind of points to like you were good at abstract thinking if you were able to like draw or be well at be doing well at English. Yeah, I did well in English too, actually. Or just like the reading, whatever part. Mm-hmm. Did you get put into like GT classes or whatever?
I don't know what GT is.
So GT gifted and talented.
Yeah, gifted and talented. Yeah, I used to think that's where like the the disabled kids were going, because I was like, they treated me like something else a lot of the time. You know what I'm saying? Like they did that to you too. Yeah, it was fucked up. Like it was kind of weird because they stuck me with all the weird kids, and I was like, damn, I'm one of the weird kids. I remember thinking that. I was like, fuck,
I'm handicapped.
Yeah.
Disabled.
But then I spoke to the other kids, and they were like, they were weird, but they were definitely smart. Like they had us reading like a bunch of books and whatnot, which is kind of weird. Like in America, you'd think that they would challenge you mathematically, but they just challenge you with literacy. At least at that point, they were throwing books at us that we were supposed to be reading in middle school or high school, and I was like, dang.
I mean, now that you mention it, like I think I was in like an advanced class or something in elementary school, but like that's something like I've pushed out of my memory almost entirely.
You're like, I'm not even sure.
Yeah, like I'm just now remembering like, oh yeah, maybe I wasn't. Maybe
I mean,
dude,
maybe because I say this only because they pushed a lot of English stuff. Like if you were good at English, they pushed you in one of these like special classes or whatever, even if you didn't know it. Like there was once they stopped doing that, they kind of did it like subversively. At least my middle school did. They kind of separated us into two groups, and they were like, yeah, you guys are like the gold team, and because their school colors were like black and gold. And then they were like, the other students were like the black team. And I was like, okay, which, I'm on the black team. I get like, and I was like, I know that I'm on the, like the good side, because I see all the smart students over here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I was like, shit, okay. So yeah, I mean, they started doing more like subversively, but then in high school it completely stops, because at that point you're like, oh, AP classes, college credit, dual credit courses, whatever. It's a lot more transparent at that point, but yeah,
for sure. All right, so maybe we could transition into like talking a little bit about your motivations going into college and stuff like that? Because like you started studying biology, right?
Yeah.
How long did you study biology before?
Like 2 years.
Okay, so what drew you to biology in the first place?
I was good at it. Okay. I was good at it, man. I was really good at it. I actually really like biology, but I like a lot of things, so it's kind of hard to really be like me. I don't know. What drew me to biology? Well, I guess maybe like why do I like biology? Well, I mean, it goes back to like what I was saying, like how, growing up, I was like, oh, dude, like I want to know how life works, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. That's always been like a lifelong question because it's been so interesting, like how life even originates. Does it originate on Earth? That kind of thing, how do you get the conditions for life? How do you get complex organisms out of that? How does it happen? Like, I mean, obviously it takes millions of years now that I know, but like, at some point in my infantile brain, like I used to just be like, man, this is so miraculous. Everything is so amazing. Even in like high school, like evolutionary biology was like the most interesting thing to me.
And seeing this miraculousness. When Terrence was on the podcast, we had a long conversation about religion, right?
Yeah.
Dude.
Did
seeing this,
you opened the Pandora's box with him.
No, it was great. Like,
it was good.
The Pandora's box turned out to be
that's good. That's
beautiful. Good. I think went really well. But
okay.
Anyway, so seeing this miraculousness that never drove you to like religion. I think a lot of people might see like, oh, this is so spectacular, like the watchmakers.
No, because I think I pushed that. I pushed religion at least out of my worldview early on in my life. Like my life experiences were kind of like, I don't know if there's really like a benevolent being like orchestrating things. Just from my experience, like I can see why some people would be like, no, I've had a great life and there is somebody pulling the strings. I don't know. I mean, that's just from me. That's just from my experience. But like, I've also seen things in my life that were kind of like, that were definitely, how do I say it? Like it could not answer it in a rational way. Mm-hmm. And we're like to the point where it was miraculous. Like, one in like crazy probabilities. And I was like, there's something interesting like going on here in like our existence, at least. I don't know what it is. I'm not going to say, I mean, for me, it's like religion's out of the question, but it's something special that I can't really like ever even conceive of trying to pontificate about how to give it meaning. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. So you're talking about some like perhaps abstract, like interconnectedness of things, or just in a vague sense, like something that we're missing.
Yeah, there were points. There are critical moments in my life where I can count them on one hand, where it was just like, holy shit, like there's too crazy. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So could you like give an example of one of those moments? That would be interesting.
Well, I mean, I mean, I kind of don't want to bring the podcast down, but yeah, like there was. Okay, like so. Okay, I feel like I'm gonna bring the podcast down. Okay, all right. So 5 years ago, my younger brother, he passed away. He was in a hit and run, and the day it happened, my younger sister, she had said, she was like, oh, I have a weird feeling about today. Like she's like, I don't know, I don't like the feeling. Like it feels off, and we're just like, oh, okay, And then it's just like, dude, I still can't believe it to this day. I'm just like, wow. I'm so, how do you say it? It's like what's the word? I'm speechless. Like I'm speechless, like thinking about it.
Literally speechless.
Yeah, it was so profound. It was such a profound moment when, later on that night, I even had a feeling of just like being like, man, for some reason I'm going to remember, like I feel like I'm going to remember this moment. And then like an hour later, I get a call from my mom, and she's like, yeah, this and this happened. And I was like, oh my God. It's like, wow, this all happened, like there was sort of premonitions there, and there was feelings there that could not be explained rationally. And I was just like, obviously, I obviously am analyzing this out. Like, I wasn't thinking like that at the moment. Like, at the moment I was crushed. Like, I wasn't even thinking about what I had been feeling, what my sister had said. Like, I wasn't thinking about any of that. Like, that was all post processing everything. Yeah. And it was like, I couldn't believe it. And then like my mom had told me something. She said something about how she, when she came to the US, she told me about how like her family had like a sort of spirit animal, and the spirit animal was very like an owl. Like, she was like, yeah, it's like an owl. And she's like, when she first came to the country, she saw like a family of owls like perched onto a tree when the first night that she came here. And I think it was like two owls. So she was like, yeah, I think that like, and then the next 2 years I had my two oldest children. It was me and my older sister. And she was like, yeah, that was like profoundly spiritual for me. Like, she was saying like, and then, so fast forward like some 20 some odd years later, the night after my brother passed away, like, I remember I went to the patio, and I was just like thinking, and just like, man, like just sitting alone with my thoughts, and then like an owl I hear an owl. And this is rare because there's like not supposed to be owls. Like, I've never fucking heard an owl. I've been living this place for 2 years, like 2-3 years almost. And I'm like, dude, like, I was like, that's something. Like, that, all of this is something. And yeah, I was just like, dude, like, I can't explain that. Like, I just can't. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of like that spirituality there that I literally can't explain. Like, I'm just like, this is almost miraculous. The events that like how they unfold and all that kind of stuff. Like, my brother was very spiritual before he passed away. He also kind of predicted his own early demise. He would say that he's gonna like die young, and he would always be like, yeah, I feel like I'm gonna like die when I'm young. He died at 20. And I was like, damn, like, what the fuck, man? Like, there were so many things for me already at that point. I was like, I thought I had the world figured out, kind of thing, like being a physicist and a scientist, and and then you see these kind of things, and you're just like, dude, I don't know. Like, you're literally left with, at least for me, I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I really don't. So, yeah. So for me, it's a lot more, I can understand why somebody can be like, yeah, like, that's your experience, but I also have, my experience of the universe is something that's like this neatly cut out experience of nothing spiritual or nothing else going on. It's just this, I can understand why people come at it like that. So I don't blame people that do it. But yeah. Yeah, I hope I spun that in a positive direction, because I was trying not to bring it down to be like, oh shit, man, like his young brother passed away, like, damn. But yeah, shout out to my brother out there. I don't know what he's doing, but there's some going on. He's pulling some strings, man. I don't even know. I don't even know how he's doing it, but yeah. But yeah, so did I answer your question? I'm just like, dude.
Examples of like some
interconnectedness. Yeah, okay, that did answer your question. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
any comments about?
So I mean, I guess, do you see this as a possibility just that can arise from randomness, or do you really believe that there's something more than that?
I mean,
and what would you say is that more?
I can't. Because I don't know. I'm just gonna say I don't know, because I really have no fucking clue. I can only point to those experiences and say there's something, but I can't even fathom what it is, because it's obviously something that's like, if they were able to feel things, like, and they felt those, like my sister at least, like she felt those things before it happened, like, like that's something profound, and that's something deep that I really don't know. Like I don't know. Is it how does the brain have access to something that? Does it have access to feelings? Does time exist for the brain, really? I don't know. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I get into ridiculous questions that I'm like, dude, I really don't know.
I mean, my mom also tells me stories about her experiences with this kind of, like, I guess you would call it like psychic type of experiences, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like premonition, or she claims she's seen like spirits and stuff, where the stories that she tells sound like, to me, insane. How, like, for example, one of the stories that she once told was that there was this girl from her school that she had later found out had passed away, but one night she woke up and saw her like in the stairs, like throwing up, and the next, maybe a few days later or something like that, found out that she had passed away, and then it was believed that she had died from poisoning, right? Damn. So it kind of like matched up.
Yeah.
But then, so the question is really, is it miscounting? Like, is there some psychological, like something psychological that's happening there? Is there's like a miscounting of the experience? Did you get the event order incorrect?
Yeah.
Or is there something deeper,
Yeah. I mean, that's harder to like confirm, like, cause your parents, right? They're telling you about it.
Yeah,
something.
exactly.
Yeah. And like with the case with my sister, I was like, she posted about it online. Like there's like a receipt.
Yeah.
And then she also had said it to all of us. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's so in that case, I'm like, miscounting is out of the window for that explanation. So I don't even know. Like there's a lot of physicists who think there's some physicists early on that thought maybe the universe is a lot more interconnected than we'd imagine. There's some people that think like that we share some kind of like sort of some base level of consciousness in a sense. I don't know if I agree with all that. There's something strange going on. I just haven't like been able to like really sit down and like think about it too much. But yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to shut up and calculate, man. Like, I'm trying to pass all my classes and whatnot. So so it's hard to like pontificate without sounding kind of ridiculous. But
no, I mean, it's interesting because lately we've been having conversations about like about in general, like what,
the grand questions.
The grand questions, right?
I see.
And then, I mean, at first, I really wanted to explore these like psychic experiences and see like, what is that about?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's like something psychological, or is there some more, like you said, some deeper connection?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure really about that. Like, I'm skeptical about people actually having these psychic experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But because I've had like, I don't know, I would say low probability events occurring in my life as well that I've experienced. It's, you ask yourself why, if, the events that you see are random, right? And there's something that's like, you would assume is like a low probability event to happen, like a sequence of events, like what you just discussed, that seem like,
what the fuck?
The coincidence of that occurring is such a low probability event. You're wondering why that would happen.
Yeah.
But it's still possible, right?
Right.
So it's like maybe it just happened to occur, and people put more importance on something that happens to them that seems very low probability.
Yeah.
They attribute that to something greater.
So yeah, I mean, I would just add to that saying like, I am open to the possibility that there's more out there in terms of our experience, like
the human experience in the universe.
Yeah. So clearly, like, there's no reason within physics that I know of at this point that our experience has to be the sum total of like the universe or multiverse or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
That there could clearly be more out there that is yet to be explored and could affect our daily experience, right?
Yeah.
But I would just always push towards skepticism. Don't attribute something to, something abstract when it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
Always be mindful of your own personal biases,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And like cognitive biases.
Yeah.
I think psychology would have a lot to say about situations like this, about like trying to rationalize deeply like traumatic events.
Yeah.
Right. And looking for
100%.
evidence and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like I'm deeply sympathetic to your story, and
Yeah,
if I was in your situation, I would think the same, right?
Yeah,
But I'm just saying,
No,
always as scientists, it's our job to be skeptical.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
So,
like I was 100% skeptical of everything, like up until that point. Like when I had, when you experience those things so sequentially, I still am a skeptical person. I actually am. Like it's made me more aware of certain things, but at the same time, like I'm still critical of a lot of like serendipitous things, right? You have to be careful about, or sorting through certain things and just being like, okay, is this how many things occurred that day that you can sort of be like, how do you say it? That you aren't sort of thinking back on and because I was telling you like sort of post processing everything, like when you're processing trauma, you can sort of misappropriate things and like fuck up timelines all the time. And yeah, I mean, I definitely considered that. Like, I'm like, fuck, did I remember something wrong? But there are certain things that I do. Like it's like you have witness account, but it's like when you tell somebody about this situation, I can understand why people would be like, dude, you're fucking crazy. Like you lost your mind at that moment. And it's like, yeah, I did lose my mind a little bit, but I have people that can I have witnesses there, but it's like, dude, that doesn't mean anything whenever you're relaying something to people. So it's kind of like, yeah.
Well, I'm not saying that the recounting of your experience is ingenuine or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, think about it this way: is like, have you seen The Curious Case of Benjamin Button?
Yeah.
Right. I don't know if you remember. It's been a while since that movie, but there's a scene where this woman who's a dancer, they go through this whole like 5-minute, or it's a long scene of where they go through a long series of events that seem like improbable, that just like are random events occurring, and it's the chain of these long series of events that lead to her getting hit by a car and breaking her legs. And she can no longer be a dancer, right? And so
damn, how did you remember that? I saw the movie.
I never saw the movie, so
right.
I don't know
how I remembered it. Just popped into my head right now. But my point would be that you could look at any day in your life and you could see that there is a series of low probability events, and each day, each cross-sectional area of your day, you would find is extremely improbable of occurring, right? Whether it's, some, extreme event happening or not, right? The amount of events that had to coincide to, get to where you are at this moment, is astronomical, right? Just because we're dealing with like a many body system here, just because so many things are interacting at the same time, I would say that for all these things to line up in this experience that you're having at this moment is going to be improbable.
So I think what Joe's trying to say is that everything is a miracle. Every day is a miracle. Cherish it. I mean, you're right. Every day is every day we get to breathe and live is kind of miraculous. Like, I mean, things have to go the right way all the time. And even I think, I mean, but then you have to say like which things are low risk, right? So, traveling in my car here on Friday afternoon or Friday evening, early Friday evening, 5 p.m. Am I higher risk or lower risk to, see certain outcomes, right? I think there's a certain line of thinking here. It's like Bayesian thinking, right? Right. Yeah, and I mean, I can agree with a lot of the outcomes. Yeah, I mean, but that's how do humans define? Okay, so humans come up with the word, or people come up with the word like miraculous or serendipitous, or things that are out of the perceivably ordinary.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and even people come up with words like synchronicity and like things like that to kind of describe things that one would not normally encounter in the world. Like I think about this one moment. I think it was off of Feynman's book. I think it was what is it called? Something about what people think. Do you care what other people think, or something like that?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure which book it was. Maybe it was the second or the first one. I think it was off this first one. His wife had died of, I think, tuberculosis. If I'm it's been a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I read this maybe like 9 years ago or something. He was recounting a story where he was visiting his dying wife on her hospital bed, and he was saying that the moment she had passed away, he looked down at her watch, and her watch like stopped. And like it took him a moment to realize what had happened, and he kind of sat there and thought about like what the probability of that was. And he was like the probability of that happening was so high, he's like, that I could only count it as a miracle or something. And like that, this was way before anything had like that had ever happened to me. So I was like, that's kind of interesting. Like, like these really profound moments in our life, like these two big things have to happen at once. And I mean, maybe that goes back to what you're saying. Like, we ascribe certain events as big and certain events as small. Like, I found my slippers today, right when I needed them, like that, what I mean? But that's like something so inconsequential because they're just slippers,
Right.
So I totally get what you're saying. Like, it's kind of like a lot of miracles happen, small miracles happen every day if you think about it really deeply.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, yeah. But I think there's also something more, there's a sort of profoundness to certain like events that are just necessarily human, like between human and human interactions that are like interesting to say the least. But yeah, like, yeah. Right. I don't know if I said that the right. I hope I said that the right way.
No, I mean, it seemed to make sense.
Yeah.
Right. But
yeah.
From this end, right?
I think I had fucking caffeine today, man. I would have been dead as hell like if I didn't.
Yeah.
So
no, we tend to talk about deep topics here. So
yeah. Good. Good.
But I guess this kind of more naturally segues into a line of questioning that I wanted to bring up later, but I think we should do it now. So let's just table some of this framing stuff. You saw Avengers Endgame recently, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I guess overall, what do you think about the movie? Maybe avoid spoilers if you can.
Oh shit! No spoiler edition.
Well,
hey, y'all had 2 weeks, all right?
Yeah,
to
that's
watch
true.
this movie.
No. just say what you want, because what I plan on talking about is going to totally spoil it anyways. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought it was great. I loved it from beginning to end. Yeah, I mean, what else is there to say?
Okay.
I mean, what? I mean, am I supposed to talk about what I liked about it?
Well, no, it's just your experience with the movie.
I mean, it was nice, man. It was good. Like, I was happy with the outcome.
Okay.
If that answers anything.
Yeah, I mean,
were you happy with the outcome? Because
not particularly.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, I mean,
you might be in the minority here. So actually, you're not in the minority. I had somebody tell me they absolutely hated the movie.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know.
Well, I slept through the whole thing, so.
Oh, shit. That's even worse than hating the movie.
Yeah. She caught like the first 20 minutes.
Well, I mean, it was because I had just finished pulling a 2-day like non-sleep session to finish work. So I was kind of exhausted.
Yeah.
So that's why I slept through it, but not.
Oh, that came out right before finals.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I feel that.
yeah. So I mean, there's no judgment there from my end, anyways. But
Wait, what? Okay, so what didn't you like about it?
it just felt like a cop out, I guess. It's just like I was really satisfied with Infinity War, right?
Okay.
It's just like they pulled this twist. It seemed like really like some people would say it's dark. I just say it's like adult, right? It's like kind of like you don't expect this to come like for the superheroes to get their asses handed to them.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, that's kind of satisfying, right? Because
it is.
It's a villain that's like at least well motivated, right? A lot of
Yeah.
people are like, I'm with Thanos, whatever.
Yeah.
And I just felt like they took a big step back from like a lot of those points.
In Endgame?
Yeah, in Endgame. Like Thanos suddenly seemed like sadistic, just like a bad guy, Didn't seem as well, fleshed out as his character progression.
You're saying this alternate universe Thanos.
Yeah, exactly. He's just like, I'm going to kill you all.
Yeah, that was a little bit like very cartoonish of him to be like, all right, you guys don't appreciate the life that but then here's the thing that they kind of didn't flesh out fully. They should have made him more like obsessed with, or they should have made him have a god complex, a lot more obvious. Because like he obviously has a god complex.
Mm-hmm.
Like he wants to be able to create and destroy life literally at the snap of a finger. So I think they should have narrated that or translated that better through like text. Or at least through the movie, because it just seemed like at first the way they set it up was that, oh, he's a guy who cares about, making the universe into a balance or whatever that means, right? For whatever that means, right?
Right.
Obviously, there's a lot more there's a lot of different ways that you can reach that balance.
Right.
My argument was like you could just make more rice and beans and then have everybody fed or whatever.
Yeah.
But he was like, nah, we just have to like kill half of all life. So. I mean, to each his own, but they should have fleshed it out a little bit more. In deeper reasoning was more like just like this guy's like kind of fucked up. Like he literally has a god complex, and that's making him think that he can like kill people at like because he feels like it.
Yeah,
sort of. Like you don't get a sense of his madness in you know what I'm saying? Like, because in the second part you kind of really see him. Like you don't really see him unhinged that much in the first Infinity War.
Yeah.
But in Endgame you do kind of see him be like, yeah, you know what? It's personal. Like I'm just gonna kill all of you and go on with my plan or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, anyways, and it's just like. The point I want to talk about more is just like I'm all for like willful suspension of disbelief or whatever, and like if
wait, what do you mean? What do you mean?
Like so, what I mean is like the whole plot with the time travel stuff was just so hokey, and it's such a trope. It's just it is. I wish they would have come up with like a more creative way of like dealing with the situation.
But they handled time travel better than most movies.
I mean, no, I don't.
So?
I wouldn't argue.
I don't know. So you can tell me how they handled it because I have no idea.
You don't think so?
No, I don't.
Okay.
In what respects do you think?
Okay, I like that they said. Okay, now we're talking about physics and movies. But
yeah, exactly. That's why I want to talk about it.
So, what they did, and I appreciate, was that they didn't treat time as a linear thing. Mm-hmm. They kind of said time is like sort of fractal in nature. So, like if you go back in time, you essentially create a new timeline. So that branches out into another timeline. It's necessarily maybe you don't. For you to go back in time is like supposed to be linear or whatever, but they kind of use quantum mechanics. Ooh,
right.
Like.
I think that's the problem, right? Because they're not really explaining. They're just kind of invoking quantum mechanics, the topic, and they're not really like they're not rigorous at all in putting like the pieces together. How that equals time travel.
Yeah, but that's the fiction of it.
Right, but it's just like, why invoke quantum mechanics at all then? It's just like, it's not even at all accurate.
Because, well, no, I agree with you, but for the general populace who quantum mechanics is a huge question mark for them, they're like, yeah, I know nothing about this.
Right,
So I
but
can't.
that doesn't mean you get to treat it as a black box. As in, like, don't know what to do with the plot. Okay, quantum mechanics.
Yeah,
That's,
I mean,
that's
that
gonna
happens a
solve-
lot in sci-fi, though.
That's what I'm saying. Is that's the topic I wanted to address. Like,
Oh, okay.
like how, like, is there anything in quantum mechanics that actually bears fruit in the movie? Like, no, it doesn't make. I don't think.
Well, they threw the word eigenvalue in there.
Exactly, I
Which
thought-
They
which I
threw
thought
in
was
values like EPR paradox and like.
Oh, they said what is
Or what was
some
it?
Fucking yeah. They said EPR. I was like EPR. This has nothing to do with this shit.
Yeah, and
That's one of the like interpretations.
decomp,
of-
as in like decomposition.
Yeah.
and
It's
the-
fractal. He said fractal decomp or something.
the
I don't know.
Deutsch proposition.
Deutsch
or
proposition.
something
That's
like that.
what
and
is
Mobius
that?
strip or
by
something. right?
David Deutsch.
Did you read up on that? I didn't.
I'm like vaguely aware of it, but I don't think there's even such a thing as the Deutsch proposition. I think it was made up.
But what Tony said was that the Deutsch proposition is that like if you go back in time, you create a new timeline. You don't necessarily like go back in time and then
Right. Okay.
alter timelines.
Right. So I guess it's like a similar thing to. I guess we were talking about that on one of your previous podcasts.
Yeah, I think so.
About. I didn't realize I was making a David Deutsch argument, but like if you go back in time, you know, it could be compatible with the many worlds hypothesis
Necessarily have to be. I think.
interpretation. Right.
Yeah.
Right. But
Yeah.
anyways, just like the whole concept of time travel, like quantum mechanics, I just want to lay this out, and maybe you could disagree with me, but like the way it was presented is just, I guess it's kind of tongue in cheek, right? I guess they realize like it's kind of a joke, but
Yeah.
like Andrew Lang comes out of the quantum realm, and then he's just like, guys, have you ever thought about time travel?
Yeah.
And he's like, time was different for me in there. Like it slowed down like by a lot. Like I was only there for a few hours, and this was like 5 years apparently.
Yeah.
It's like, what if we could go back in time?
Yeah.
It's like in quantum mechanics, as far as I'm aware, there's nothing that says that you can travel back in time
Yeah.
in the first place.
Yeah.
Right? So treating quantum mechanics like it's relativity that says anything about the change of time, right?
Yeah.
So quantum mechanics, invoking quantum mechanics there is just like, you don't need to go there, bro. Like just say something about gravity or relativity or Einstein. Just give me a different box and I'll be probably a lot more happy with it, I guess.
It is kind of nonsensical because we don't even really. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, I don't know, there's a lot of sci-fi shit talks about like even articles nowadays are really sensationalized. There was an article I stumbled upon that was like saying how scientists were able, this was a headline, like scientists go back in time or something. I don't know if you read about this, but they force a particle to go back in time or something. They said, I don't know, it was some stupid headline. But all it was really doing was that, you set your system like back to its initial like state.
Yeah, well, I think in quantum computing there was like a little kerfuffle or whatever of like people were claiming to have gone back in time, and I think someone ended up disproving that.
Yeah.
So that's where the movie got this idea.
Maybe, but I mean it was also disproven like in
I
relatively
mean,
short order.
I understand that, but
Right.
That's all they needed to use
it. I mean, time is also kind of, time is like at least to me, an emergent phenomenon.
So what does that mean? You're going to have to break that down.
So what I mean by that is like, sort of like, okay, like reactions happen, right? And so since reactions are happening and there's dynamics involved, we're all moving and we're moving in time. Mm-hmm. So necessarily, if we had a static universe, I guess it wouldn't even make sense because nothing would change and there would be no concept of time to begin with. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, because like time is a human construct for the most part, right? It's like how we measure the rate of change of things. So I guess talking about time in the fucking quantum realm or whatever, to me is like, that's kind of nonsense, right? Yeah. And I mean, when you go up to bigger scales, that's when it gets a lot more interesting because then you get into like Einstein's, bullshit or whatever. So
Einstein's
no,
official
yeah,
bullshit
all his dumb equations. No, I'm just kidding. No, you get into all of that, right? And yeah, that's like well thought out and like well formulated and everything. So yeah, I mean yeah. I mean, if I think about it, I will probably hate the movie more, but I didn't think about it. I turned my brain off. I turned my brain off to that because, I mean, cause honestly, like I don't know if I could enjoy as many things as I do if I didn't turn my brain off.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, man, yeah, because it sucks. It sucks that it's hard to enjoy sci-fi.
Right. No, I mean, I understand that. There's no need to pick on it, really. It's like they don't claim to be scientifically accurate.
No, but I know
like
what
that.
you mean, but because it sucks, because it's like, it's kind of taking me out of the movie a little bit. Yeah. I totally agree.
We ruined it for you.
Yeah, it can ruin. Sometimes if it's really bad, it can ruin a movie for you. Like, so I totally get it. Like, if it's like, fuck, this is so dumb. This is such a dumb premise. I can't even follow the premise of the movie.
Yeah, but anyways, I mean, it kind of loosely relates to like this other pet peeve of mine of like how this, like, I don't know your feelings on Deepak Chopra.
Oh
like
fuck! No, I don't know, man. I don't even know.
You don't want to open that can of worms.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's just.
It's just like a lot of people. I'm just saying invoke quantum mechanics
exactly.
in terms of like we were talking about a little bit about spirituality earlier.
Yeah. Oh,
because because quantum mechanics to the lay person is a
Yeah.
black box, right? They think, okay, I could insert quantum mechanics here and then get, some deeper connection to the universe, get quantum healing effects, stuff like that.
Yeah, nah. That's insanity to me. I read a book about, what is it called? There's a guy, before I even realized, I saw it at like, there's a store in Texas called Half Price Books. It's like a used bookstore, and there's like I always go to the science section, but there was a book that had a cool title. It was called The Holographic Universe. I forget the guy's name, Steven something. I forget his name. Anyway, I decided to read it, and I started reading it, and I was like, what the fuck is this book talking about? Because it brought up Deepak Chopra and whatnot. Okay. And like the guy was talking about materializing things like from consciousness, and I was like, this guy's insane. Like, he was talking about how Jesus was one of these people that could materialize like things from his mind.
Right.
And I was like, dude, this is like I decided to read the whole book because I thought it was like, I thought his imagination was incredible. Mm. I was like, I wonder if this guy originally thought of this. And like, apparently it's like pretty derivative. Like a lot of people have thought about this, but like, this guy was quoting like some Deepak Chopra stuff, or Chopra. I don't even know how to pronounce his name, but yeah, it was really fascinating stuff. What was the guy saying? He was saying that, I don't know. He recounted this event where he was like sitting in his room studying or something, and then he just imagined like what was it called? He imagined like a rock in his mind, and then all of a sudden he heard like trickles on his paper in front of him, and then like he saw like dirt falling on his paper because he was conceptualizing a rock or something. Right. And I was like, dude, this is like.
Right. So
this guy's schizophrenic.
It sounds like a hallucination, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, because I understand there are people that are like legitimately schizophrenic and see things that people don't see, that aren't real to anybody. They're just literally experiences that the mind is convincing itself of.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So, I mean, Chopra's, one of his things that he's written about is this cosmic consciousness.
Right? Oh, yeah.
So the idea is that, we have in science the typically held belief of materialism, right? Of what we see in the universe is what makes up the universe, like atoms, subatomic particles, etc. The cosmic consciousness belief seems to be that, as far as I understand it, is that consciousness came first, right? Is that from consciousness, the universe as we know it materializes, right? So The evidence for that, I mean, the thing that Chopra claims is like in medicine, right? Your conscious state, right? Like your mental state, like how you feel, produces things like cortisol, adrenaline, dopamine, etc. So you're effectively creating molecules, right? And that's an example of the brain directly, like, you know, creating things in the universe.
Right. It's kind of silly though.
Yeah, but to say that then applies to like, okay, I'm gonna think and create a rock, right? And
have rocks have fall in front of me.
Like,
yeah, I don't know about all that. Yeah, I mean, you can kind of. I mean, I can kind of agree with them if I just bastardize the meaning of it, meaning in the sense that like our brains are all our brains are is a sensory input, right? Mm-hmm. They're just a good function input of light, basically frequencies, right? So light, sound, I guess even touch. I don't even know, vibrations or whatever of feeling. So in a way, our brains do kind of interpret the world around us, but not in the way that most people think, like in that spiritual sense, right? Like you can't really, it's an input machine. It's not really, I mean, we do output, but we have to output physically. We can't output things like what they're saying, like materializing things. That would mean that you would need to, you would somehow have access to, I don't even, this is what's insane. You would somehow have access to at will controlling atoms in the air and then, you know, putting them together, and that's just so improbable. Like for you to have that much energy to bring the electrons of something together and make a fucking rock
right
in front of you, like you would need a nuclear like reaction to happen. Yeah, so I mean, all of that's like in the ramblings of an insane person to me.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah. Anyways, it's just a pet peeve, you know, when it comes to like, quantum mechanics is just like this mysterious thing. And I guess, you know, I was tempted to bring it up because we had a long conversation on your podcast about it, and you had an interesting take on, you know, you think that we do understand quantum mechanics. Do you still hold that position, you think?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think we do. I think we have a good idea of what it is, you know, of what it does and what it doesn't do.
Right. I guess to clarify, like, to me, it seems like we're still debating the physical and the philosophical underpinnings of quantum mechanics.
Well, we all have interpretations of the philosophical.
Right. So to me, that would qualify as not understanding it, right? Like unless you have like a foundation of like what the physical meaning is, what the philosophical interpretation ought to be, then we don't really understand it. I can agree that we understand the math, we could understand the experiments, but what the experiments should tell us in terms of its physical implications is where I think we don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, the full interpretation or the full mechanism as to how these measurements come about in quantum mechanics is not fully understood.
Right. So that
but to me that's more like because we can't see what's going on down there. We have to we have to collapse the system.
That depends on your interpretation, right? So that's the Copenhagen
interpretation. I agree with the Copenhagen interpretation, but mine's kind of like not really bastardized version, but I like decoherence, right? So like the system,
But like, what does it mean for it to collapse? Like, what's causing the mechanism of collapse, and why does that occur? That's not complete. That's what I mean.
The most convincing sort of interpretation of that I've heard is like the interpretation of like decoherence. So like the system, when you interact with it, you have you can think about it as you have a large thermal body, right? And this system has you're coupled to the environment around you, and interacting with this system that's in isolation energetically, right? yeah, I think I said this on the podcast too, but it's kind of like taking a bowling ball to measure the momentum of a fly or something like that.
Yeah.
You fucking you kill the fly just to know what its initial velocity was or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So to kind of break that down as I understand it, is if you want to observe the state of some particle, right? Say, it's in superposition, meaning it could be in this state or another state. You're not sure which. So you go and bring your super powerful microscope to try and shine some light on it and figure out which state is it actually in. The mere act of shining that light on it puts it into one of the states.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. The bowling ball is the analogous. It's analogous to inputting that energy that just basically spreads out the possible location of that particle.
Yeah.
Right. But still, I mean, so this is something that I didn't really understand when we were talking in reference to the Joe Rogan and Eric Weinstein podcast.
Yeah.
What I didn't understand about Eric Weinstein's point was he was saying it's perhaps we're just asking the wrong questions, right? Like perhaps the fact that we get a probabilistic answer means that the question we're asking doesn't make sense, right? And to me, that didn't make sense. I didn't understand his point. Like I was saying, why I don't understand why it's a bad question to ask, like, where's the particle, right? Like,
okay, yeah,
right.
yeah.
It's going to have some probability, like say it's up or down, 50-50 here, 50% it goes up, 50% it goes down, just as an example. Why is that a bad question? To me, it doesn't make sense. But what he was referencing is the measurement problem in quantum mechanics.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what Terrence was getting at. I don't know if he's even heard of it, but he seemed to be kind of hitting it on the nail, as like the fact that you have superposition, right? The fact that there's some probability of it being in this state or that state, is a problem, right? Because you only observe it in one or the other.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like you're kind of saying after the fact that, the state must have collapsed, so you only get one of the possible combinations. And I understand that the bowling ball is perhaps a way out of that, but
you're saying, okay, but in the bowling ball thing, it's like, okay, why do we get different velocities in that case, right? Because like if you're trying to measure the momentum, right, then you have a certain set of possible values given, or outcomes given how you prepare your system, right?
Mm-hmm.
So typically we talk about like the basis. We put a particle in a certain basis, right? Depending on what we're trying to measure,
right.
At least in the abstract. So yeah, like I kind of agree. I don't know. I mean, I do have it's hard for me to, because I thought about this so much that I've kind of come begrudgingly to accept the Copenhagen interpretation, but I can kind of understand why we're not happy with it, because of the probabilities, right? Because the fact that we expect for there to be a linear transition, from the classical worldview of things, for things to be 1-to-1, as opposed to, getting a set of values, or certain weights of certain things happening,
right.
In that sense.
I guess the only thing that detracts my intuitions from the Copenhagen interpretation is just like, it really, I think, muddies the physical interpretation of things, right? Like, sure, you could say it's a wave function and it collapses, right? But it really gives me no understanding of what physically like motivated that to even occur in the first place, why it was in superposition, what happens to it after it collapses, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Well, there's some people that think the wave function isn't even real. Some people think the probability density is the only real thing. Because like the wave function is usually imaginary. So it's like, you only, to take the real part, you take the norm of it, right? So yeah, like, and what is the idea of taking the norm, right? That's like the physical thing, like, because what the probability density is actually what we see. Like if you look at an atom, you look at the, what is it called? The orbitals, like SPDF, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like those are like where the electron is more than likely to habitate. In that sense, like that's the only real part of the wave function that you can talk about, like the probability density. Where was I going with that? Totally forgot. I just blanked on that.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, we're talking about we're treading in some deep waters here. It's like pretty.
Oh! You were talking about. Wait, no. What did you say? What was the last thing you said? Count me back. Take me back a little bit.
My issues with the Copenhagen interpretation.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
About how I think it's kind of. Well, I didn't say this one, but it seems to me just like a redefinition of the physical things so that it makes sense, right? But basically, I think the Copenhagen interpretation doesn't really give any insights as to the actual physical structure of the universe as far as I can see. Like the motivations, the philosophical underpinnings.
Yeah.
Like to me, it's just like you define this thing to like kind of the wave function to consume this, thing that is mysterious to us.
Yeah.
But
I mean, the wave function is a mathematical construct.
right, exactly.
Purely, yeah. I mean, there's really no way to tell what's going on down there. Like, 100%. Like, I really don't think we could ever figure that out, because then we'd have to interact with the system, and then we'd necessarily ruin the system. It's kind of hard. Like, I mean, there have been, that they've taken things, they've put things into superposition. Like I remember years ago reading about how some engineers put a paperclip into superposition, and they made sure that it was in superposition because there's a difference between classical probabilities and quantum probabilities. The nuance, which I don't remember, but they tried. I remember them making sure that they wasn't, because not all probabilities are created equal, apparently. So yeah, the quantum probabilities would be different than the classical ones, by a measurable, by a measurable amount, I would imagine. And so yeah, they were able to rule out the fact that they for sure had it in a quantum superposition, meaning linear. There's a certain linear combination of states available to the system. But I mean, a lot of us aren't happy with like our understanding of quantum mechanics. But I think for me, I feel comfortable in it only because I've already read through a bunch of bullshit that I'm like, dude, I've given up trying to rationalize like my way around it. Because like the many worlds interpretation is like appealing. Yeah. But I think we also talked about this. It just, to me, it leads to like a creation point. Like you're creating, at every moment in time, we're creating new universes, and that to me is like, where the fuck do you get the energy to do all that? But yeah, I don't know. Like it kind of sucks because I don't think we'll ever figure it out.
I guess I'm a little more optimistic. If humanity's around long enough, like I think I could envision us doing some pretty spectacular things in terms of like perhaps one day testing, the many worlds interpretation. Like, for instance, that posits some claims that I think we could test, like universes outside of our own, right? Yeah. So if we're talking like super sci-fi, I'm saying like,
Oh, Penrose does this.
You're gonna have to educate me on.
No. Go ahead. No,
right. well, so I was gonna say just like imagining some way like out of the universe, right?
Yeah. Damn,
in
what
principle,
the fuck would happen? Anyway, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
in principle, I don't see any reason why that is impossible, right? So if there were, a hypothetical framework that allowed us out of the universe,
it's like exiting the map in a video game,
right?
Where you just go,
exiting Tron, right? Yeah. But so, so then that would be a way of testing, the many worlds interpretation, or you
Yeah.
know, things like of the nature, right? I think.
But is the universe infinite then? Because if it's infinite, then
Well, the only way we'll know that.
no, it is definitely finite. But
Is I guess, yeah.
can you catch up to the acceleration? That's the problem, right?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, we need FTL, right? Faster than light travel to test.
Yeah, well, that's why we just say it's infinite, because there's like no fucking way we're gonna get to the edge of the universe.
Yeah.
It kind of sucks, man. Our life is just so. It's a cruel joke, really. Like life, like just imagine contemplating the universe and then being like, dude, this thing is it's so demoralizing thinking about how grand it is.
Mm.
And at the same time thinking like being curious and being like, fuck, there's certain things that like the edge of the universe would be an amazing thing, but it's like, damn, we could probably never get to that, maybe. Possibly.
Yeah, I'm reading this book called Death's End. I think
you mentioned that.
Right. Like I talked about, it's the last part of the trilogy, right? There's the
okay,
three-body problem.
Yeah.
Then there's the Dark Forest, which I talked about. And now I'm reading the last one, which is Death's End. There's a cosmologist who makes an interesting comment in the book. So it's a fictional person, but it's basically I think he titles it like the 3 to 300,000 issue problem, right? It's basically like if you were to analogize the universe to like a human body or something like that, because we are constrained by the speed of light, right? You could pretend like, say you were to send one photon from one location, like from the brain of the universe, the head, to some other point in the body, right? You needed to send that signal. Because of the expansion of the universe and the constant speed of light, that signal will never reach other parts of its body. So it's like the universe is like, he analogized it to a corpse, right? It's like a handicapped person who can't even communicate with the rest of its body. Yeah. And he was, feeling some feelings about that.
That's exactly how I feel, too. Right. It's like, dude, this is so fucking, it's so isolating how, and then once you learn about like what is it called? The deep freeze. Mm-hmm. Just like, dude, that
heat death.
Which one do you think? So heat death of the universe or deep freeze? Which one do you think?
Well, what's the difference? I thought they were.
I thought the heat death was more like. Wait, maybe they were the same thing. Because the deep freeze to me is like everything gets so isolated. Right. That we all reach thermal equilibrium.
Yeah, that's heat death.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
There's.
I thought they were different, but whatever.
3 cosmological, perhaps, posits for the end of the universe. Okay. Right.
I'm not a cosmo guy. I'm not even an astrophysics guy, so I'm out of my fucking.
Right. No, that's okay. I mean,
forte. So
most of this is just pop science stuff, but it's like physicists for a long time thought that the universe would end in a big crunch, right? So. Basically, you had the Big Bang, rapid expansion of the universe.
The universe is a spring.
right, is the idea, right, for the Big Crunch. So you have this rapid expansion of the universe, but because of gravity, things will eventually collapse in on itself, and things will slow down and go back inwards. And go back, and then you'd have the cyclical process of Big Bangs.
Hooke's law. Just gravitation.
Everything's a harmonic. Right.
So sad.
Right. But the interesting part is like as we look at further and further away galaxies, you see greater redshifts, which is the evidence for dark energy. Mm-hmm. Right. So as you peer further into the universe, you see that they're going faster. Right. So it's linear up to a certain point. Like the acceleration of the universe is linear up to a certain point of our neighbors. Yeah. Which is consistent with just like an expansion. But as you look further, it starts to have some power law.
Interesting.
Which is why we think that there's something repelling gravity, right? Mm-hmm. There's some external energy, i.e. dark energy, that's counteracting gravity. And so that kind of tosses out the big crunch idea. Yeah. Because like, unless there's going to be some role reversal of dark energy and it just completely flips around, and who knows what could happen on this time scale. But things going as they are, we're pretty much on a locked path for heat death, which suggests that as the universe ages, you'll get things so far apart from one another that basically our galaxy, in billions of years' time will be lone in the universe, right? And everything will become so isolated that, eventually you'll reach thermal equilibrium and everything will die out. So
Yeah.
the last things to live will probably be, I guess, black holes, right? Because Stephen Hawking showed that they do evaporate, right? That they do radiate. So they'll stay alive the longest. I think I don't know where I'm remembering this number, but I think it's a ridiculous number, like 10 to the 52 years or something like that.
Damn.
Or something like that. I forget. That number could be totally off, but
Metaphysics also just did a video about like energy that you can extract from like, or it would be more efficient if we learned how to like, the most efficient thing in the universe is a black hole or something.
Right. It could be talking about information theory. Like when I took statistical mechanics at my undergrad institution, one of the problems was calculating the entropy of a black hole, because the idea is it's the most efficient way of storing information, right? And so you could treat the entropy or like the countable number of microstates as like, ways of storing information. So you could treat like black holes as, hard drives or whatever.
Right.
And so, but anyway, so like if there's, if just due to the fact that there's a minimal amount of energy being radiated from the black hole, like perhaps the last bastion of life in the universe would be like species orbiting around a black hole, and then eventually they all evaporate. And,
damn.
Right. And there's another of like the big rip, right? That was the other one I forgot to mention, of like this rapid expansion is just going to keep going on and keep accelerating up to the point that, the internal structure of like subatomic particles and atoms and stuff will no longer be able to sustain itself, and those things will rip apart.
Seems ridiculous.
Right. Well, it was taken seriously at some point, but I forget measuring the cosmological constant, I think, is what eventually led them to believe that.
Yeah, it was like everything is in the ground state, right?
Heat death would
for the
be
most part, except maybe stars. Okay.
But
yeah.
Anyway, so those are three posits for the end of the universe. Very interesting stuff. I mean, as far as we know, it seems like the evidence kind of clearly points towards heat death. But the problem is we don't really understand dark energy. There's a lot of wiggle room in there when you got millions, billions of years to play with.
We also don't understand how to mesh, right? Still, quantum mechanics and gravity. So
yeah, that's one of the big mysteries.
I mean, honestly, if we piece those two together, it's over.
What do you mean?
Like I think that's like the next step, I think, in our like. I mean, I really don't know what that would do, but I think, like I'm saying we understand quantum mechanics in the sense that how it exists, like up to now, because we haven't really cracked the code with like gravity or what the fuck if how it affects things in quantum mechanics and stuff. And there are actually some experiments that they're trying to do in space to see how gravity affects certain things. Because there's some people that think, well, it might actually affect the collapse of a particle or something. So they're thinking maybe doing experiments in space might kind of reveal something new or interesting, which is kind of interesting. But I'm like Earth's gravity affecting. But I was like, that's such a low, like, interaction, like force of gravity on that scale. I don't know. But who knows? I don't know. That would be interesting. But yeah, it's like I think that is the next step of us understanding quantum. Like, if we want to talk about a bigger picture for quantum mechanics, I think it might come after that, because then we might have a better idea of what the fuck. Right.
I think Leonard Susskind said something similar. Is like, before committing himself to like an interpretation of quantum mechanics.
Yeah.
It's like something I said on the podcast, I guess, is like, it seems like we don't have enough data. I think he was suggesting on Sean Carroll's podcast that he thinks, just as a hypothesis, that if you unify quantum mechanics and gravity, you might get a deeper physical interpretation and be able to actually understand what's going on there.
Yeah. Because these are two things we don't really understand: gravity and quantum mechanics.
Right. Well, we don't understand
to a deeper level.
how they connect to one another.
Well, even to a deeper level, because we don't even know what the fuck. Like, we have a mathematical construct of gravity, right?
Right.
But
yeah, this is an interesting. Like, so what is gravity? Is that what you're saying?
yeah. Which a lot of kids ask, and then we tell them, you know.
Well, I would say it's the curvature of space-time.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're implying that that's unsatisfactory. For what reason?
Well, I mean, like, no, it's true. It is the curvature of space-time.
Right.
But then, you know, why does quantum mechanics not say anything about that, right? So,
what? Not say anything about what?
About gravity. So why?
Well, it does. It's just.
Oh, it does. Okay.
It just, the problem is well, just how you apply it, right? So it's just, the problem is
this is out of my realm of expertise, so I'm literally asking.
So the problem is like when it comes to like black holes or the instant of the Big Bang or stuff like that, is you have moments of singularities, right? So basically the issue in a very
in
a very like layman sense,
you know
like oversimplifying, is like you're dividing by zero.
I'm being stupid. Yeah,
basically.
You're right. Yeah.
Right. It's like, so in those extreme scenarios, right? Quantum mechanics and gravity, they just don't like each other, man. The math doesn't make sense.
You're right. I'm being dumb. Yeah, you're right. No, yeah, I've definitely learned this. So I was being stupid. Yeah. Yeah, man. It's kind of. But yeah, I think I would agree with Susskind on that one. Just like that would open up a true understanding of that.
Right.
But I don't know. I still think. I mean, do people really? But that's what I'm saying. Like, people don't understand gravity in that sense because it doesn't have like a. Because most things can be, at least for right now, can be described from fundamental particles, right?
Right.
Except for gravity. I mean, there's gravitons or whatever, but I don't know.
Right.
Isn't there evidence that there are more evidence that there are no gravitons than there are?
I'm not sure the state of that.
I'm not sure about that. Yeah.
I don't do particle physics, so I can tell you.
Right. Yeah.
No, you don't know. I mean, you're the one taking QFT, so I don't.
We
know.
haven't talked about gravity.
Actually, I think it might be the opposite.
There's more evidence for gravitons.
Yeah. Or basically, gravitons, to explain, is like some hypothetical particle that mediates the gravitational force, right? And so there's two camps on this. I think it's basically to explain dark matter, right? Dark matter is, there's structures in the universe like galaxies that ought to be more uniformly distributed, but when we actually observe them, they seem to be much more compact or form neat structures that suggest that there's more mass that we don't see, right? So dark matter is this source of energy that basically is interacting through the gravitational force.
Yeah.
Right. So the two camps are, one is that we don't have a full understanding of gravity, right? And that,
which I would agree with that.
Well, just like Einstein's equations of general relativity are wrong in some way, and we need to like reformulate that equation. Or camp two is that there is some extension to the standard model, i.e., there's some weakly interacting massive particle.
WIMPs.
Exactly.
Shout
A
out to
graviton,
WIMPs.
right?
Yeah.
So meaning that there's like specific particles in the universe that interact in specific places to give you extra mass.
So yeah,
Right.
Shout out to physicists come up with funny names. Machos,
Right.
WIMPs. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny stuff.
I'm blanking on other interesting ones on the top of my head, but I watched a video by PBS Spacetime recently that was pretty interesting. It's titled "No Dark Matter: Evidence for Dark Matter?" Right. So basically, there was a really interesting paper by someone looking. I think it was a group from Harvard. Looked at some galaxy, and basically, when they count up all the stars and they try to do the math of like summing up the total mass of that galaxy, what they find is that you don't need dark matter in that specific case, right? Which is really interesting because most other cases that we see, you do need some extra mass. But so what that indicates is that it's not a misunderstanding on the level of the equations of gravity, right? Because if that was the case, you would expect to find no place where dark matter wasn't present, or like this fundamental missing piece of gravity was not accounted for, right? So
so maybe it's like a special case.
Well,
maybe these might be special cases.
Well,
no, I'm saying not the case that you brought up, but I'm saying like the places we do see dark matter or whatever.
Right, exactly. It suggests that there's some particle or there's some interaction going on there that isn't present everywhere through the universe, which you'd expect for like a fundamental force like gravity. Yeah. So, as far as I'm aware, that's the state of the field that I know. But
I always thought dark matter was like the insoluble fiber of the universe. You know what I'm saying? Like it just doesn't get. The universe doesn't know what to do with it, so it's just kind of there. You know what I mean? Like it's just like, okay, all right, what the fuck? That's kind of interesting, though. I don't know. Like I said, my realm is the opposite. I look at things. I study for the most part like electrons in solids.
Right. How
electrons behave in solids, through different like interactions. But you study like, I mean, because your realm is kind of like. It's astrophysics, right?
Right. Well,
but it's like
my specific field is like, I'm talking out of my depth here. I'm not talking to my specific field. It's like,
but that's your like
interest.
Yeah. Like cosmology, right?
Well, no,
in a bigger sense, though. Would you say? Because to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought astrophysics was kind of like. Astrophysics is kind of like, which one is under which? Is cosmology under astrophysics or astrophysics under cosmology?
If you're talking about like length scales here, cosmology is like the biggest, right? You're talking about like cosmologists would talk about like the life and death of the universe, the smallest structures, the biggest structures.
Okay.
Astrophysicists would talk about, I think I've heard a lot of different definitions for this, so it's perhaps our fault that it's not clear. But
it's ill-defined to me.
But as far as I understand it, I would define an astrophysicist as someone who studies like smaller scale than the universe, right? But bigger scale than like people or whatever. So you're dealing with like galaxies, you're dealing with stars, you're dealing with exoplanets, stuff like that.
So the interactions between stars or just stars themselves.
Right, exactly.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. And then cosmology is like the
stuff we've been talking about, like heat death, about like the smallest things, like at the Big Bang instance, or like, stuff like that.
Okay, so it's nested inside of cosmology.
Right, yeah, that's the case. Yeah. But this kind of like neatly provides a transition to my next question of what motivated you to get into physics in the first place? Because like it seems interesting that you ended up in condensed matter, right? Yeah. Studying electrons, how they move and stuff like that. Going from, I guess, a biologist to like, perhaps materialist isn't the right word, but someone who studies materials.
Yeah.
What brought about that transition?
I think like we're all electronic beings. Like electrons are like, I just thought electrons were so interesting, but that's because they're almost like the currency of the universe in a way, almost for all living things. So. Yeah.
Could you unpack that a little? What does that mean?
I said that thinking about it. Yeah, I say things and then I either agree with them or I disagree with them. So they come out and then I think about what I said. It's I think it's the natural extension to like if you think about things deeply enough, like if you ask questions about like what is life, right? And the fundamental interactions with that, like say you go down to, so what is life? Okay, life is, an organism, a complex organism. Okay, what makes up a complex organism? Cells. Okay, what makes a cell so special? Okay, it's the chemicals, the chemistry that happens between them and the molecules and stuff. Okay, what makes up molecules? Okay, atoms. Okay, what makes up okay, electrons. How electrons interact. And like that kind of to me was like, okay, we're at the framework here of like, you know, where things begin, where our materialistic world begins. And like to me that was a lot more attractive than just a simple question about what is life. But to me it's like now it's more like what is the universe? So yeah, it kind of was that. Like I just kind of broadened my scope.
Sounds like following that explanation, that trajectory, you'd end up where Irene is, going into high energy theory, right? Going to the standard, because clearly we know now that electrons aren't all that there is.
No, for sure. Yeah,
there's subatomic particles, right?
But you have to go to really high energies that we don't see anymore.
Right.
In the natural, in our everyday life, so to say.
Right.
Yeah. So I stopped there. That's why I stopped there, because I'm like, those you have to go to really high energies to get to that. It's like I'm not going to see that. So,
right.
Yeah. But I mean, it's cool. Like I also like particle physics, but you know, you gotta press the brakes somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Like, because for me, I love quantum mechanics too, but like I'm like, fuck, I don't like if I could study two things, I would probably study like the foundations of quantum mechanics. You know, I'm talking about like real, foundational. Try to fucking shake the foundation of quantum mechanics, if you will.
Shake it in what way?
Like just probing things, right? So there's a lot of people that try to not necessarily disprove, but yeah, I guess disprove Bell's inequality, right? So the realism doesn't exist for particles, and they do a lot of experiments on that. And yeah, like that's a foundation of quantum mechanics experiment that I think is like really profound, where, you know, you get to say realism isn't a thing, you know, and that's like, that goes into the philosophy of physics, right? That goes into the philosophy of quantum mechanics. Okay, like realism doesn't exist at the quantum level. What the fuck? Yeah, those are really cool. Those are really cool things, but it's like completely out of my fucking like realm of like what's expected to finish in a PhD. Like, you know what I mean? For a career, like that's like if you become a professor and maybe you can dabble in all this shit, but
right. So then, imagining your life post grad school, then what does your trajectory look like in your head? I guess. Say we look in at you 5-10 years from now.
That's too short. 20 years, 20 years, maybe 20, 30 years. I could see myself like doing that kind of research. That would be cool.
Okay.
Like that would be cool.
So you see yourself as a researcher then? Or like,
yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I mean, a teacher would be cool. I like teaching, but I don't know, man. It's like, it's tough. It's tough. Like, damn, I don't even know if I could do like, imagine yourself being a professor. Isn't it kind of nuts if you think about it?
Kind of.
Yeah.
It is, right? It's kind of nuts. Like, just like imagining that. Like, I mean, it's because I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, do we just outlive our peers? Do we just outlive the people that are teaching us, and then we're the ones who know the most at this point? You know what I'm saying? Like, is it kind of like that? Is it that point where you just accumulate knowledge to the point where you're just like, oh shit, it's just us and my peers? What the fuck? It's just, now we're teaching the younger people? Like, that's kind of nuts.
Yeah, I mean, to put it in perspective, like, the level of education that we have at this point is just insane, right? Like, because like, how many people graduate high school, right? Like, not 100% clearly. And then how many people graduate with a bachelor's degree? I think it's like 30% ish.
Yeah.
How many people get a master's, right? How many people get a master? How many people? Yeah, exactly. So, how many people get a master's in science? How many people get a PhD? How many people get a PhD in science? How many people? Anyways, the number of steps that you've taken on this ladder puts you already, like where you're at now, in the top, probably the top 5% of people in the world who know physics, right?
Yeah.
And if you think back, to put another lens on it, think back towards the whole history of
right,
of
humanity,
physicists, and human experience on the world, like just by nature of like going through calculus, and right, more than like probably the
Newton himself,
right? Yeah, much more than Newton himself, that's for sure.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
So
he'd be like, "What the fuck? Why are you using Leibniz's Leibniz's notation? Fuck Leibniz." No,
yeah, but so just like putting perspective on it, man. Like, I guess it seems like just yesterday or right now we're students, right?
Yeah,
where you don't really have authority or whatever, but in
but
reality,
point,
in reality, we've been trained for so long that
I jokingly told Terrence that we might as well be Illuminati. Like, it's a level of knowledge we know where just like if we talk to people about what we know, they would just be like, "The fuck are you talking about?"
Yeah,
because it's like we would be like Freemasons or whatever the fuck people call. Yeah, like it's just because the amount of knowledge that we've acquired, we paid a pretty penny for it, but it's like it's like such a it's like a history of knowledge that we've acquired that is like it's insane.
Right. Sure. Yeah, and that reminds me, there's one question I meant to ask earlier that's kind of a digression. But I mean, you've talked about like having like student loans and stuff like that, and paying that pretty penny is what reminded me. Is like, how have you felt in terms of like money as an obstacle towards getting to this level of education?
Yeah, I mean, it's I mean, on paper, I guess you can say it was a good deal. But like in terms of like having that debt, it's never a good, like it's never good to have that much amount of debt. I think the average student graduates with an undergraduate has like 40 grand, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. I thought it was like around 30, but it's close enough.
I think the numbers have gone up. I think it's 45 now.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And it's only getting more expensive. And I think for a graduate degree, you probably add 20 grand more easily. For a lot of people, I mean, for us, it might be a little bit less, but it depends on if you want to live comfortably or not. But yeah, like, I mean, it's expensive. I mean, I think hopefully at the end it's worth the amount of money that, I took upon. So we'll see.
Well, I mean, I guess the problem is you don't go into physics for the money.
Yeah.
Right. And so taking on a serious amount of, like, you have to be a special type of person, right? Like, because you have to be really curious about these foundational beliefs, like you've been talking about, like going, why does life exist, to what is life? What is the universe made out of? Yeah. You have to kind of care about that more than you do about, a little bit more like job security, stability.
Yeah, unfortunately.
There's no clear path for a physicist, I guess, other than professorship, right?
Yeah, and I mean, well, at least for me, I guess it's a lot more. And I mean, for some of you guys too in astrophysics, like, I mean, you guys find jobs by coding, and because y'all do a lot of coding and shit. But for me, it's like I have a job that can be automated for the most part.
Yeah, you have a special set of skills.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I can also I generally know how to do a lot of things. Like I'm like for me, I have like it's sort of like I've been building a trade, because I know how to like do things from scratch, which is kind of nice. But I don't know. Like, in terms of employment, there's only certain industries that would employ you to begin with.
Everything condensed matter, I'd imagine it's like just having access to equipment is your main selling point.
Right,
Like
right. Yeah.
knowing how to use an AFM, SEM,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, but that's like, to me, that's not rewarding. I think I would rather, that's why I was like, fucking, I'm going to do a PhD because I really don't see myself just being a technician, just knowing how to use a certain piece of equipment, and then that's it.
Right.
Like I just have, I would find it more rewarding if I had, if I was able to do something interesting to me, like answering a question, like about some material, seeing something new, whatever, like, you know, that kind of thing.
And
but it's cool to me. Like, if it wasn't cool, obviously we wouldn't be here if this wasn't cool to us or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Super painful. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's equally painful. Like, a lot of people ask, like, what is it like? And I'm like, yeah, you know, it's like, it's fun. Like, I mean, I obviously wouldn't be here if I didn't like it more than I disliked it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But it has its moments where it's like, fuck, this sucks.
Yeah.
You know?
There's a lot of sacrifice. There's a lot of pain and suffering and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's just like, you know, like I will acknowledge that, right? But that's what keeps drawing me back to it. Masochist, I guess, you know, just like thinking about doing anything else just seems boring.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Just doesn't seem as intellectually like rewarding.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
100%.
I mean, how does your significant other feel about, you know, you pursuing these things,
These
perhaps
big things?
like pursuing the PhD and like perhaps giving up this more comfortable lifestyle that you're talking about? And
I think, I mean, yeah, I mean, they realize that it's a struggle. There's a lot of people outside looking in that are kind of like, why do you put yourself through this? But then it's like, this is the process for everybody at our like pretty much at our level, you know?
Yeah.
Like, this is normalized kind of thing. And it's like something if you can't put up with it, you know, the door's over there. Like, that's really what it is. Like, and it's like, fuck. Like, I mean, a lot of people outside don't really know how to internalize that. Like, my girlfriend is kind of like, yeah, you know, she came to terms with how it is, but she also thinks it doesn't need to be that way. But she understands that it's an institutionalized thing. Be
the way in terms of like the workload and like
like
work-life balance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like she understands why it is the way it is, but she kind of says like, she's kind of like, it doesn't need to be that way, but she accepts that there's a culture
right
instilled from generations that have a certain belief institutionalized.
Right. Yeah. So that's one of the main purposes of this podcast, is to try to break that notion.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there's a specific way of being a physicist.
Yeah.
As it's defined now.
Yeah.
And it's pretty rigid. It's pretty inflexible in that you have to basically give up like all of your hours, right? You have to give up so much.
You have to be a monk.
Right.
As one teacher so gracefully put it, he's like, you have to be a monk of physics. He's like, you have to give up all your hobbies and whatnot just to be like good.
Yeah. The other Juan, who may be appearing on the podcast shortly. I don't know how he does it. He still has hobbies. He still works out 4 hours a day. But
from when I talk to him, he it's definitely not. I can tell that it's stressing him out.
His stressing him out as in the work? Well, I guess it would have to be the workload. But you mean like his hobby is stressing him out?
No. I think the fact that it's hard for him to be like, even for me too, it's hard for me to like reach a good balance. It takes a while to find that, I will say. I'm in my third year, and I just started finding it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it takes some people like a lot faster. Some people, like, my first year was terrible. Like, I didn't have a balance at all.
Yeah,
like, it was very lopsided for work. But now it's kind of like, once you figure out the ropes and everything, you kind of know how things work. The second year, you're kind of just like stumbling, but you're still picking yourself up. And then now I'm just kind of like, okay, I can manage these things a little better. But
yeah, I had a very similar experience. I mean, because I came in, I guess, a little cocky, because in undergrad I had a lot going on, right? Like I I had a couple jobs. I
Yeah.
had scholarship program. I was, going to school.
Yeah.
I was doing research. I was president of some extracurricular thing, and so on and so forth. So I'm like, okay, like I think I've mastered work-life balance. Like I know how to schedule. I know how to organize myself. And then I come in and I just get demolished. Right? I come in and I just like, nope, you don't know any of these things. Right? You have no balance. Right?
Yeah.
You think you have it all figured out in your head of like who you are and what it takes to survive in graduate school. You're probably wrong. Well, I was wrong.
Yeah.
I was
a
very
lot of people
wrong.
are, man.
And so I got destroyed. My work-life balance was terrible. I had really bad insomnia. I got like 3-4 hours of sleep a day, and it impacted my work, and I didn't realize it. And now it's just like, okay, let's take a step back to realize like the misconception I had in my head is like, if I just put more hours into it, it will get better.
Yeah.
That's not true, right? It's like
law of diminishing returns.
yeah,
right?
Exactly. Like at a certain point, you're not getting anything out of it, right? In fact, it's probably just hindering your health.
Worse.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just making my retention go to shit. And so it's just like, point of the podcast is to try to address that. Like, why did I have this conception in my head in the first place that I felt like I needed to devote every hour of my life,
lose your sanity.
Right, exactly. Sacrifice, to the point where it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's because of what I've been told that like what you need to do to be a physicist, like
Yeah.
and stuff like that, and I just don't think it's right.
Yeah, it's definitely not healthy at all. Yeah. There's a lot of people that have criticisms of it, like in terms of like I don't know. I have a friend. I have a very close friend that was like he's of that same opinion, but he's very much an academic where he is like, hey man, if you're not into it, like if you're not devoting your life to it, you're not about it. Like that's
Right.
literally his words. And I'm like, yeah, but like if certain people have different, some people want to have different outcomes in life. Like some people want to like have a balance, they just don't want to be a workaholic for the rest of their life or, that kind of thing. 'Cause truthfully so, you do get out what you put in for the most part, right? But, and some people, and here's the other thing, some people can also handle stress better. Some people actually thrive off of stress, but the thing is, I think most people on the norm handle stress as a negative.
Right.
I can point to somebody like Elon Musk and be like, that guy handles stress well because he can take on 4 different fucking projects and then deliver on each of them. You know?
I wouldn't say he handles stress well. I just say he can handle stress.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Right. We'll leave it at that. But at least for me, I would be like, I can only take really 2 or 3 things.
Right.
On top of being like he has kids, I'm like, dude, I don't even know how you would I don't know how you have time in the day to even wipe your own ass, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, how do you? Yeah, it's insanity to me. I don't know. I personally I'm a person who has a lot of hobbies.
Yeah.
And I enjoy my hobbies. So, and I also love physics. I love doing science. That's like the part of my day I look like forward to. But at the same time, I'm like, sometimes I need like something else. Like sometimes I need to go home to something else interesting. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like reading a book or.
Right. No, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I'm very similar. I have so many hobbies that, I'd like to cultivate all of them.
Yeah.
Right. And it's.
Yeah.
And y'all have instruments here. So
right.
I'm like, yeah, y'all know what I'm talking about.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I think it's like, it doesn't even. I think that also has like a utility function in your work too, right? It's just like going out and taking a break, I think is necessary. Like being at the grind of like being at my desk, slaving over calculations all day, like sometimes there's a place for that. Mm-hmm. But other times it's like you need to step back and go to something else to like increase your capacity for creativity and thinking outside of the box and stuff like that. You could kind of get boxed down into the same type of thinking over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, some I've read some people find inspiration for their grand ideas not even in the lab.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's
They're not even doing they're doing something else completely unrelated.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that puts us in a unique position as research scientists to be able to do that. But I think like there is an unhealthy culture there that I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know where it stems from, but it's slowly coming into light how ugly it can be for a lot of graduate students. I mean, right now they're just focusing on graduate students. Like there's like studies about graduate student health, like how most graduate students I forgot what number was thrown out there, but it was an alarming number to professional like mental health people that were just like, this is not good.
I think you're, as a graduate student, what I remember is like you're like 3 times as likely to have some type of mental illness,
something like that.
Right. And you know, the number I like to toss out there is like 90% experience imposter syndrome in physics.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
so,
but that's because you're always being right, and that stems from you always being, as a student, being compared to the greats, and even your professors kind of expect that of you, and it's a lot of it's nerve-wracking for a lot of students, I think. Yeah, and it also boots a lot of students out because I think a lot of students are like, I'm no fucking Einstein. What's the point of going on if I'm not an Einstein? And there's a lot of professors that also don't suffer fools either. Yeah. So it's like, dude, it's like, and then they wonder, why aren't there any physics students? What happened to physics as a discipline? It's like, I mean, you guys are fucking assholes.
But so I'm becoming mindful of your time. How are you feeling right now?
Yeah, I think I'm being summoned. Okay. Actually, so I've apparently extended my stay.
Okay, you might,
according to my girlfriend. Yeah, she's
okay.
Like, where are you? You said you would be home by this. I didn't even notice the time. So
yeah, we've been talking for a while.
Good on y'all.
Let me just finish on more lighthearted note if I can. Let me see. So you've talked about having nurturing some of these outside hobbies.
Yeah.
Right? So you play guitar, right?
Yeah.
Are you currently in a band? Have you had experiences in a band?
First of all, I just bought a new guitar.
Right.
For the first time, I bought my first electric guitar, like by myself. I've had like hand-me-downs and shit. So that was exciting. And then I bought an amp with my tax return. So I bought this all with my tax return. So I was like,
Nice.
But I got such a little shitty amp, like a little box amp. Like I did.
Yeah, I mean, you can see my amp in the corner there. It's a little, it's a micro amp that runs off of like AA batteries or something.
Is it so is it like, I just started reading about this. So there's solid state amps, there's tube amps, and then there's some other one.
I'm not really well educated
so
on that.
I literally just read about this making my purchase, and I was like, this one has a lot of features. So I bought like a solid state amp, and I was like, man, this sounds so fucking like, it sounds like a box. And I was like, oh, I see what's happening here. Like it's because the way they make the solid state amps is like, it's all on a chip pretty much, and it processes sound, so it tries to sound like whatever you put in there, whatever beep boop beep, you type it in, and it's just like, oh, you want to replicate a 76 Stratocaster guitar or whatever, and then it'll do that. But it's like kind of like but I'm like whatever. It's like I was happy ultimately with it. I'm excited to start playing it because I'm like, dude, I just want to like. Sometimes I'm like, man, I watched like a Jimi Hendrix. It showed up on YouTube now. It has like algorithms, and it's like, hey, we think you'll like this, and then they showed on the sideline like some Jimi Hendrix Woodstock footage, and I was like, oh, I haven't seen this in a while. So I clicked it, and it was just like going off, and I was like, man, it's like I want a guitar, like I want an electric guitar, just the way he was going off. So yeah, I bought that, and I'm excited to put strings on it and start playing it. But in terms of band stuff,
Hmm.
yeah, I was in a band,
Mhm.
2 bands, three bands.
Wow.
But it was all like high school stuff for the most part. Like I played guitar. I played bass out of necessity from one of my buddies asked me to play.
Mm-hmm.
So I played bass in his band. And then another band I was like doing, it was like in some fucking metal band because they asked me, hey man, you know how to do like, because I jokingly in high school did what is it called, those pig squeal things? You've heard of that? It's like it's like death metal thing. It's like really, it was huge at the time, but I knew a buddy of mine who showed me how to do it, and I thought it was funny, and so I did it. And then this other guy overheard me, and he's like, dude, like you should come to my place. You know, I think we could work something out. Like, you know, you could be our vocalist. And I was like, fuck it, man, let's do it. And like, I was like, I mean, yeah, I was like, whatever, yeah, sure. And yeah, I did it, and it was very short lived because I was like, dude, I didn't really like their sound. I was like, it's kind of cookie cutter like metal music, and I was like, yeah, no, I don't want to be a part of this. And then the next one was kind of like me and my buddy from like my longtime friend. We like grew up together basically. He like makes music for fun, and he was like, hey dude, we should like write music together. And I'm like, all right, fuck it, let's do it. And then right before I came here, I had like 8 months off, so I was just like writing stuff with him, and I was helping him like just make songs. And we made like one song, and I was like, oh, this is pretty good, but I'm super picky too. So it's like hard for me to be happy with anything. Yeah. Like anything that I make that I'm like, I still like to this day, I'm like, dude, this could have been better. And he's like, dude, whatever. Like, it's good. He's like, and there were so many iterations that I went through, like 4 or 5 versions. And every one of them, he was like, dude, this is fine. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's not ready. It's not ready. But yeah, I'm just like, dude, I'm too much of a perfectionist, but I'm trying to like pull back from that. Like, especially now, I kind of want to make like, what is it? Like beat tapes. Like, you know how they have, like YouTube has those like hip hop, jazz, what is it called? Playlists music you can study with or something like that. Like that would be cool. Cause I'm like, I listened to a lot of that, and I was like, man, I really got into that genre. And I was like, I kind of want to learn how to play like jazz guitar. That would be really cool. So like my next goal is to be like, all right, let me see if I can make some like jazz kind of, you know, what is it? Yeah, it's like, I don't even know what to call it. Chill.
Like lo-fi?
Lo-fi. Thank you. That's the word I'm looking for. Shit. Lo-fi music. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been getting into that too. So.
Yeah, I was like, man, it'd be cool if I could just make some real cool that I would be happy listening to. That'd be kind of cool. It's simple enough and interesting enough to where I'm like, yeah, that could hold me over for a while in terms of like a creative outlet, you know. Yeah, so, great. Yeah.
Well, great. So I'll let you get home to the missus. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. Thanks for coming out, man.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, it was fun. I know I did most of the talking. I must get it from my dad, you know.
Yeah, but
yeah, thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I don't know if you have anything else to plug, but if you feel
yeah,
like you want to plug anything,
once again, if you liked my ramblings, I guess you can check out Eigenbros on YouTube and SoundCloud. I'm not a particularly like video person. I listen to podcasts. Like I listen to shows or whatever. I don't really watch podcasts. Yeah. But for those of you that do, check out the YouTube. And for those of you that don't, check out the SoundCloud. So,
all right.
Well,
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep.